recent past, NewsX has made a huge effort to make sure that the victims of the Kanishka bombings receive justice. The campaign finally saw an impact as a 1-minute silence was observed in both the houses of the Parliament, the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. NewsX had campaigned extensively for this silence to be held after Canada had observed 1 minute of silence for Khalistani terrorist Nijjar's killing anniversary. And this is the difference that we wish to point out for all of you viewers today. This is the difference between India and Canada. While on one hand, Canada honors Nazis and terrorists, we stand up and our parliamentarians stand up, observing silence for all those victims, those innocent lives who were lost in this terrible tragedy 40 years ago. Before I go across to our very special guest joining us on the broadcast, let's in fact listen in to an excerpt of this telecast where we had suggested what was to be done to our parliaments and where we campaigned for India to host a 1-minute silence and finally the outcome of that as well.
So should India's parliament take a minute of silence for the Kanishka victims on the 39th anniversary of this terror attack?
The Indian Parliament must take up and very strongly and condemn the action of the Government of Canada.
Kanishka being an Indian aircraft, all the innocent victims who perished in that terror attack were technically on Indian territory.
Not only we should commemorate it in the Parliament, but also we should invite the ambassadors of Canada, United States, the other Five Eyes countries and all the countries of European Union.
आयरलैंड में AI-182 कनिष्क में विस्फोटक के कारण 329 निर्दोष लोगों ने अपनी जान गंवाई थी, जबकि जापान में ऐसी एक और बड़ी तबाही टल गई, लेकिन इसमें भी 2 अन्य लोगों की मृत्यु हो गई। ये घटनाएं इस बात का स्मरण कराती है कि विश्व को आतंकवाद और हिंसक चरमपंथ के प्रति शून्य सहिष्णुता क्यों बरतनी चाहिए। इसे किसी प्रकार से क्षमा नहीं किया जा सकता, न ही न्यायोचित ठहराया जा सकता। अब ये सभा दिवंगत आत्माओं की स्मृति में कुछ देर मौन रहेगी।
All right, there of course viewers, you can see what exactly took place in the Parliament yesterday. All the leaders in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha in a united manner got together, they stood up observing a minute of silence, paying tribute to the 329 innocent lives lost. Joining us on the broadcast today is Dr. Ashok Kumar Mittal, Aam Aadmi Party member in the Rajya Sabha. Also joining us is Sanjay Lazar, who had lost his entire family in the Kanishka bombings on that very fateful day. Also with us is C.S. Malhotra, who is the father of Atul Malhotra, who also perished in the tragedy itself. First up, I'd like to go across to Dr. Mittal, who's taken out time to speak with us even as proceedings of the Parliament are underway. So thank you for speaking to us. At the outset, I would like to say that what we saw yesterday, where both houses of the Parliament, the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, both honoured the 329 victims. It was perhaps a very rare moment where every parliamentarian, irrespective of the party they belong to, honoured these victims. In contrast, we have seen Canada honouring Nazis and Khalistani terrorists in their parliament. What message do you think India's gesture has sent, and have we made the difference between India and Canada crystal clear?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much to give me this opportunity. Whatever has happened was so bad, so terrific, so tragicful that no words can compensate that tragedy. No words can compensate that tragedy. But last week, I'm happy that your TV channel, NewsX, took this initiative in a big way, called some of the people, family of the people who have suffered in that attack. And you also called me. And in that moment, I told the audience of NewsX through you that I'll try my level best to raise it on the floor of the House and request of the government and the Speaker Saab and Chairman of Rajya Sabha to take it up and observe silence. I'm happy. Our Chairman, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, Vice President of India, took the initiative, and Speaker Shri Om Birla ji took the initiative in Lok Sabha and told us all members of the Parliament to observe 1 month's silence for that. It's the great initiative by both houses of Parliament that they took this initiative and paid tribute to departed souls of 329 victims of that tragedy. When we say 329 victims, but the number is much more. You should see how their families are suffering. Even they are suffering today. How are they feeling today? The Parliament paid tributes to 329 people who died and gave some consolation to their families living right now. At the same time, I would request the government of India to take more initiative and do justice with the families who have suffered in the tragedy. And I'm happy this process will continue and the justice will be brought to all the victims and all the families of the victims. I'm again thankful to Honorable Chairperson Rajya Sabha and Honorable Speaker Lok Sabha that they took this bold initiative and observed silence in the respective houses. Thank you very much. And again, I request Chairperson Rajya Sabha and Speaker Lok Sabha, please request the Government of India to take more initiative in this direction to bring justice to all victims and their families.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, even during your busy schedule, to speak with us and, of course, raising the issue in the very first place as we had appealed to do so. Thank you so very much for doing that and making this a reality. Of course, sending out a strong statement from our end to the world that, of course, India stands with the victims of the terrible tragedy. We will make sure that they are remembered and they will not fade into oblivion. Meanwhile, I'd also, in fact, like to rope in some of the family members of those who lost their lives, C.S. Malhotra as well as Sanjay Lazara. First, I'd like to go across to Mr. Malhotra. Sir, you had also joined our telecast last week itself when we had proposed, in fact, for the Parliament to hold this minute of silence, and you had stated that it is time for this to happen. How are you feeling at the moment? What do you feel now that all our parliamentarians in a united manner stood together to observe silence and paid tributes to the lives lost?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank NewsX channel for taking up this issue, and this helped in bringing the matter to the Parliament. I am very much grateful rather, to the Speaker, Mr. Om Birla, Chairman, Mr. Dhankar of Rajya Sabha, for their initiative in observing 2 minutes silence, and the Indian parliamentarians to show their solidarity and remember those who lost their lives in Kanishka crash. But my main concern still remains. My main concern is that even today, the Canadian government is glorifying the terrorists and not only protecting them, but even encouraging them to take such steps which are prejudicial to the interest of India. Their warning to the people that don't travel by Air India or other Indian aircraft is an indicator that something similar may happen, and that's my fear. Therefore, Indian government need to tell in very strong and stern words that such a situation will not be tolerated. The Indian Parliament should also as they have shown their unity in remembering the late, victims of Kanishka, I would also request them to convey unitedly that protection of terrorists and activities of the terrorists against India are not acceptable under any condition. And some strong measures need to be taken in this regard. I will again thank both the chairman and the speaker of the House and the parliamentarians for their unity shown in remembering those victims who have lost their lives in the crash. My only feeling is let similar thing not happen again.
Indeed, sir, and I would like to ask a follow-up to that as well. The tragedy that took place nearly 40 years ago was the worst terror attack in the world before 9/11. But it is not something that many people know about. It is not something that people speak about oftentimes. Do you think this gesture by our parliamentarians will now make more people aware of the atrocity that took place back then and remember the victims as well?
See, it's unfortunate that even the government at that time didn't take the notice as they should have. In fact, this incident happened because of lack of security, or I would say with the connivance of Canadian security, because they allowed the bomb, active bomb, from Vancouver to Toronto, and then loaded the same attaché in the aircraft without the passenger being on board. This was a very, very serious security lapse and could not have happened without the connivance of the security agencies. Unfortunately, government of the time did not take it very seriously, and as usual, things remained the way they were. I'm very happy now that at least our present parliament, they have taken a notice of it, and I request them again to send a clear message to the Canadian government that they must not protect and use these terrorists against India. Anything similar to what happened in June 23 would be disastrous. Therefore, a warning needs to be given now.
Indeed, and I'd like to, in fact, take this conversation forward to Mr. Sanjay Lazar, who's been waiting rather patiently with us on the broadcast. Thank you as well for taking our time, speaking to us. At the outset, I'd like to ask you as well, how do you feel at the moment? Do you think now that the people of the nation will understand what exactly took place back then? There'll be greater awareness with the fact that 329 innocent lives were lost.
Thank you for having me. And first of all, thank you to NewsX for this 1 Minute for Kanishka program that they've been doing. I'd like to thank Dr. Mittal for having raised it with the Vice President, Honorable Vice President, and the Lok Sabha Speaker. Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank both, Mr. Dhankar as well as Om Birla ji for having taken it up in both houses of Parliament. Frankly, this is 38 years too late, but it's definitely some solace. No government before had done this. I have been campaigning for the last 38 years for a memorial in India, and I have not got that. I've also been asking that Indian politicians, government officials visit the memorial at Ireland. And it's very sad that in the last 15 to 18 years, not a single minister has attended. I do believe next year being the 40th, they should. And the current parliament should also decide, let's have a memorial not only for Kanishka, but for all terror victims. Let it be a part of the aircraft that is lying in Canada. The fourth important point which I want to bring is the violence and the threats against family members that were present at the memorial in Canada. The Indian government must say something. The Indian Parliament must say something. These are things that we need to do. And the other thing is the Canadian government like Mr. Malhotra
Hello.
said, is
हाँ जी, दोबारा करना है?
this
चलेगा?
referendum on Khalistan in Calgary and Alberta. These
पर
are things
वो
that
आवाज नहीं आ रही
talk
मुझे
about
उनकी.
division of India, and
वो
therefore
मतलब जो बोल रहा है कोई और बोल रहा है.
stop this. These are my thoughts. I do hope the Parliament goes forward one step further. And the most interesting thing is the resolutions and the minute silence in both the houses of Parliament happened on Canada Day, which is very, very interesting and significant for us. That's the day that all of Canada remembers as their Freedom Day, and that's the day we pronounce this 1 minute of silence. So I'm grateful to both houses of Parliament. Thank you.
Indeed, sir. And do you think we have also, by taking this very united stand in the Parliament, where every single parliamentarian, irrespective of the party that they belong to, stood up and paid tribute to the victims, do you think India has sent a very strong message to the world that, look, the difference between us and between Canada, who on one end Canada hails terrorists and Nazis, and we here are hailing the victims, we are remembering their lives as well as honoring them. Do you think we've made that difference very clear?
Yes, we've made the difference clear. But I still say again, it's one small step forward, because it's 38 years, 39 years down the lane. Unless we decide and we make a statement that we are going to put up an anti-terrorism memorial in Delhi, it's not going to send the right signals, because at the same time that we are holding a moment's silence, somebody is holding a referendum to try and divide my country in Canada. So I think we need a lot more steps, a lot more strong, forceful statements. And like Mr. Malhotra says, justice has not yet been done. The killers, at least 2 of them still roam free in Canada. And I'm hoping that someday they'll be brought to justice. The RCMP still says it's an open case. So let's hope and pray and, keep this going. We need to keep the pressure mounting and not let up. So NewsX, you have a task to do as well.
Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us. I would also like to thank Mr. Malhotra for also taking out time, and Dr. Mittal for, of course, joining us during his very busy parliamentary proceedings as well. In fact, viewers, my colleagues have spoken to several other parliamentarians, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor as well as Renuka Chaudhary, RJD MP Manoj Jha, on the 1 minute tribute in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha for the Kanishka victims. Let's listen in to what they have to say on this as well.
मैम, कनिष्का बॉम्बिंग को लेकर के 1 मिनट का मौन रखा गया सदन में, क्या बोलेंगे?
अच्छी बात है कि अभी मौन रखने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. इट्स वेरी गुड. देर आए दुरुस्त आए, ठीक है, हो गया. अफसोस आज भी, और हम सब लोगों के लिए हमारा दिल हमेशा धड़केगा.
मैम, क्या समय आ गया है कि कनाडा गवर्नमेंट को अब एक्शन लेना चाहिए अलगाववादियों के खिलाफ?
ये कहने की बात है क्या, करना तो चाहिए था. अब देखेंगे हमारा फॉरेन अफेयर्स क्या कहेगा और कितना वो संभाल सकेंगे.
NewsX has been covering Kanishka bombing issue and continuously raising it, and now the Rajya Sabha has held a silence, 1 minute silence for the Kanishka bombing victims. So how do you see this?
I think we should have done the same thing in the Lok Sabha. Pity we didn't so far. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Because obviously that was a terrible, terrible tragedy. Over 365, I think, people killed. 328, okay. And to this day, no satisfactory solution has been found. The trial in Canada was completely botched up. There was no real conclusion. I must say that there is a great deal that remains to be resolved. And as you know, the echoes of that continue out of Canada and as poisoning Indian and Canadian relations as well. So it's a very important and tragic situation. The biggest bombing affecting an Indian airliner, the biggest tragedy affecting our citizens as well as Canada's citizens, that bring us together in this shared grief. A terrible situation all around. So I would say that the moment of silence is a very, very good gesture on the part of the Rajya Sabha, and I do wish we do the same in the Lok Sabha.
हमारे साथ बातचीत करने के लिए आरजेडी सांसद मनोज हैं। सर, कल बहुत सालों के बाद राज्यसभा में न्यूज़एक्स ने स्टोरी दिखाई कनिष्का फाइल्स को लेकर के, तो कल मौन रखा गया, श्रद्धांजलि दी गई, क्या कहेंगे?
क्या जाहिर तौर पर हम सब ने उस दौर को सुना है, देखा है, और शायद एक प्लॉट था, और मैं समझता हूँ कि पूरे सदन की ओर से जो श्रद्धांजलि दी गई बहुत ही गरिमामय है।
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.